Greetings fellow humans, Dave here. This is going to be a rather chaotic response to Miss 80s movies and music trivia, Trivial Pursuit based challenge. And in terms of Trivial Pursuit, it's based around the 6 categories of questions in Trivial Pursuit: geography, entertainment, history, art and literature, science and nature, sport and leisure, or sports and leisure if you're American. So let's see what I've got. And it's like, don't just stick to the usual things, but mix it around a bit. So, geography. So, for geography, let's see if we can go around the world. Not in 80 days, because that would take far too long on a video, but in 25 composers. Zip through the world. At this point, I'm going to cut to a little animated sequence. Okay, for geography, I've got a world map here. I've got something like 500 different composers, but I thought I would place 25 of them as just representative of the geographical spread of composers. So let's have a look who we've got. Cyril Mockridge was born in Hawaii. More commonly among the many Californians, Jerry Goldsmith and Don Davis, pretty close together. Moving to New Orleans, Terence Blanchard. Up into Canada, Howard Shaw. Representative of the many New Yorkers, John Williams from Floral Park. South America, Buenos Aires, Lalo Schifrin. Iceland has got massively representative number of composers for its population size. There's a Johan Johansson as an example. Patrick Doyle for Scotland. George Fenton for England. Bruno Coulet for France. Haven't got really room for Germany, so I've moved straight on to Italy, Ennio Morricone. Trevor Jones for South Africa. There's Pinot Toprak in Istanbul and Dmitry Tyomkin in Ukraine. Mikhail Tareverdiev representing, well, it was Western Russia, but I think that's one of the other states now. James Bernard was born in Pakistan. There's A.R. Rahman for India. Another Russian. Tan Dun for China. Nigel Westlake for Western Australia. Jun Jae-il for Korea. Yoko Kanno for Japan. David Hirschfelder for Eastern Australia. And Graham Revell for New Zealand. There we are, that's my geographical tour. Okay, well that was that. Now what about entertainment? Entertainment. At this point, we're all entertained by podcasts, right? So I'm going to plug a podcast that I'm on. It's not about music. It's occasionally veers into the subject of music, because my co-host and I are both music fans of one variety or another. But what it's actually about is anything and everything. It's called Off Grid. I shall put a link to it in the captions here and in the in the program notes underneath the video. And the concept of it is that we, along with a special guest each episode, will start off by doing a cryptic crossword. This may scare some of you at some point if you're not a cryptic crossword people and go, oh no, I could never get. You don't have to know anything about cryptic crosswords. It's fun if you do, but if you don't, we just skim over it lightly, because what we've done is, in solving a cryptic crossword, we've looked at the answers in the grid and thought, that'll be interesting to talk about, that'll be interesting to talk about, just words or phrases that are in the answers, and we research something and then talk about it. And the guest that we have on will usually be somebody who's far more knowledgeable than we are and have something interesting to talk about on a very specific topic. And we can go, and ask naive questions. In the process of it, we will very briefly cover some specific cryptic clues that we like. So if you're not a solver but are interested in becoming one, it gives you a little bit of an insight into how some of the cryptic clues work. But really that's about 5% of the whole playtime. They're usually sort of 30, 35, 40 minutes long. Great fun rambling chats. Yeah, so that's I think that counts as entertainment. I probably should have plugged it on these things before. But you know, try and keep different parts of life separate. Anyway, history. Let's move on to history of the world. No, let's not move on to history of the world. Let's just move on to a history of film music. Big thick book. Well, that's all I'm going to do for history, is show some things with history in the title. Art and literature. Well, how about, I mean, literature is books, right? So art and literature would be either paintings of books or books about paintings. Here, how about, I thought, this is usually about soundtracks, why not have books about the art of soundtracks? That's art and literature, but still within topic. So we've got these two books here, Blood on Black Wax and Planet Wax, which are all about the best of soundtrack album art. Planet Wax is about best of soundtrack art for the science fiction genre, and Blood on Black Wax, you might be able to guess from that cover, is all about the best of soundtrack album art for the horror genre. Yeah, so you've got lots of, look, Swamp Thing, Dawn of the Dead. He's just opening this at random, see what we've got. Escape from New York and Life Force, and so on and so forth. Quatermass and the Pit, Legends of the Seven Gods. I've got both of those. So yes, you could use it as a kind of, if I got that one, that's good art. Halloween's, and so on. And Planet Wax obviously covers some of the really famous science fiction genres. Space Camp. And there we are. So that's what those are. They're very good books if you're into looking at the cover art, which some of us are and some of us aren't. Darkman and Supergirl. And if you're more into the old-fashioned art, then here's this one, the album cover art of soundtracks, which really covers lots of kind of 50s, 60s, 70s with the kind of funky artwork. And this is kind of themed by style of art, I think. So you've got pages like that, covering things with similar styles. And you can see it's a big coffee table book. Look, we've got some westerns and things there. Return of the Seven, Hour of the Gun. Got all of those, folks. Hope you have. Scalp Hunters, that's come out really recently. So there we are. That's art and literature. Now, what about science and nature? Science and nature. Well, I mean, I did mention in Miss 80's original video introducing this thing, weird science. But then that's a bit obvious. So I thought, nature. I've got a lot of soundtracks for nature documentaries, especially ones off the telly. BBC, obviously, Living Planet, so that's by Elizabeth Parker. And all the rest of them are on CD. There's tons of them here. We've got Africa by Sarah Klaas. That took a bit of getting hold of because it's a bit hard to come by at decent prices. Andy's to Amazon. That's Nicholas Hooper, I think. Yes, it is. Yes. And I've got another one by him somewhere in here. Yes, Land of the Tiger. That's a very Indian themed one. So for those of you who only know Nicholas Cooper from his Harry Potter music, he does do other stuff. But then we've got Blue Planet. And in fact, it only says Blue Planet. Oops, on the spine. Because on the front, it just says A Natural History of the Oceans, which is kind of the Blue Planet. Most of these are, you know, David Attenborough things, and then of course your rope Hans Zimmer in for Blue Planet 2. We've got some Stephen Price ones. We've got Our Planet and The Hunt, and we've got a Christopher Gunning, Wild Africa. And maybe the granddaddy of them all, the first of David Attenborough's landmark wildlife series, was Life on Earth from 1979. You can see that's music by Edward Williams, or you could if the camera was going to focus. It was nicely released on CD by Trunk Records. So that's the nature side of Science and Nature. And then sports and leisure. Well, you know, some people are big sports fans, and then some people are not. I don't follow sport almost at all. Played snooker a lot when I was young. Follow that on the telly. Does snooker count as a sport? Some people would say it doesn't, and it's just a game. Certainly you don't get very fit, or don't need to be fit doing it. So I resorted back to just picking soundtracks off the shelves for this category, because there are a lot of sports films. Fairly obviously Field of Dreams, that's James Horner, and For Love of the Game, Basil Polidouris, and Rudy and Best Shot, both Jerry Goldsmith. Hell, those are all very American games, sports, aren't they? So for a little bit of balance, we have Escape to Victory and When Saturday Comes. Soccer. Football. So there we are. That's my rundown of things in the trivia categories. Wait, don't go anywhere. I nearly forgot the important bit. The whole point of these videos is you get, for during a video, an entry into Miss 80's contest for the Trivial Pursuit thing. But you don't have to have done a video, because each one of us who does a video asks a trivia question, and you can get an entry just by being the first one to supply the correct answer to anybody's video question. So this is the bit that I nearly forgot, which is why this is now a different day and a different outfit. My question to you: if I were to ask who plays Homer Simpson, then everybody would say Dan Castellaneta, and that would be a bad question. However, if you were to answer that with Donald Sutherland, my question is, why would that also be a legitimate, correct answer? There's my question. Stick your answers in the comments below. Now I'm finished.